host today. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Rosalind Kurumi from HR Devs.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle from Clarity and Beyond. But I think without further ado, that actually we should hand over to our guest speaker today, Mike Jelves. Now, I'm not going to say too much about Mike. I would like Mike to do that. So, we have got some questions that we would like to put to you, Mike, about your experience really of being in business, of the things that you've learned along the way, of any tips and hints that you might be able to share with us. Because the YouTube channel is predominantly for small business owners, and as the three of us fit that category, we're really, really interested to know from you some of the things that you've learned or experienced that we can learn from too.
Learn from my mistakes is what you're saying.
Well, I think sometimes we forget about the power of learning from mistakes and failing
Of
forward,
course.
because actually, if you don't try because you're frightened of failing, then you kind of don't go anywhere, do you? So, if you've got any mistakes that you want to share with us that you think will help, then please feel free to do so.
Nice way to start the conversation, is it? Leading with failure really sets expectations. It can only go up from here, really, can't it? But yes, my name is Mike Jelves. My background is in film and video production. I've been doing that for 2 decades now. And since the journey of working with businesses of all shapes and sizes to produce video content, that's also led into training people in creative skills as well. And particularly, it's how video can be made by just about anybody these days with the power in their pocket, with their smartphones, with their computers. Software technology has evolved to the point where filmmaking is within everybody's reach. And in the age of social media, there's no reason why small business owners shouldn't be leveraging the power of video in their business communications.
Absolutely, and
Amazing.
I just want to sort of add there that I attended your workshop for Startup Greenwich on Monday, and I think for me one of the biggest things is the fear of actually doing some of this, being visible, getting it out there. So yes, I can highly recommend your workshops.
It's very much appreciated. I could highly recommend people attending you attending people's workshops. You're a fantastic contributor. And I mean, both of you already, you've started this podcast, you've started a YouTube channel, and you could have just hidden behind microphones. It could have been a faceless audio endeavor that you two embarked on, but you haven't. You've taken that step to put your faces front and
Thank you.
center in on your
Thank you.
project. And as again, small business owners, as entrepreneurs, you are the face of your business, and we have to overcome the hesitancy to be the face of our business. We're all serial networkers. That's how we all met in our local little pocket of business networking in Greenwich. And if you're going to be going out there and meeting people face to face, video is just a shortcut to get face to face, or one face to face, with people that you haven't met yet.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of breaks down barriers, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That visibility. It's almost like I know when I meet somebody at a network meeting that maybe I'm connected with in some way, it feels as though I'm sort of on the road to knowing them already.
Exactly. The whole know, like, and trust matrix of putting yourself in front of your marketing. Humans connect with faces, psychology. We look for connections, we look for eye contact, we look for smiles, we look for 70% of communication being non-verbal. So to have your face, to have your mannerisms, to have your gestures, to have your personality come out in your promotional material and in your everyday communications with the outside world, video is a shortcut to all of that. It's an obvious thing to do, but in many ways it's the hardest thing to do, with the
Yeah.
gap of skills, knowledge, and confidence. Or if you're looking to get professionals, it can be a financial barrier. But we've all got the
Exactly.
ability to do it now. We're talking together on our webcams. it's not something that now technology is allowing it. It's just, can we get over the psychological barriers to
Side of
entry?
it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Can I ask, Mike, why you started your business in the first place?
I personally have studied media since GCSE, however many years ago that was now. Let's not get into the specifics. And when we were then coming to the end of our time at university, myself and my former business partners, Chris in particular, I suppose we didn't really want to go into proper jobs. I've never really wanted a proper job. I don't think I've ever been cut out to get up, go to an office 9 to 5 and sit at a desk, and all I would do would be eat tea and drink biscuits. I don't necessarily think I'd be productive,
We've seen that.
even though I
We've seen
struggle with
that.
that. Even though I struggle, oh, you've definitely seen me consume biscuits. There's no problem with that. And and when you study film and media, the perception is either you do nothing with that degree and you end up going into a completely different industry because it is, unique in how it's set up and the opportunities within it, or you go and start at the bottom in a production studio, production house facility somewhere, probably in Soho, and you slowly work your way up to being able to make your own things over a period of time. And whilst that was an option, we decided instead to see if we could get paid to make films. We had some success in terms of film festivals with our graduation film that we made at university. And it was the kind of inspiration that gave us and the motivation from success with that to see if we could do it. So, I worked a part-time job at the Apple Store in Regent Street, whilst then also the rest of the week, trying to make a success of the film business. And it started with wedding videos, the kind of low-hanging fruit, friends and family who are getting married and, well, I've got a film degree, I'll make your wedding video. And from there, it snowballed into corporate video work, mostly based in London. Then you move to London, then you realise London is an absolute nightmare and a financial sinkhole. So you leave London for a bit, then you come back and you kind of, start again doing that. But I think the reason we started was that, we wanted to see if we could do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we had that initial success before we graduated. And it was, I guess, push our luck, really, see how far we can get away with it.
Yeah, no, I
Amazing.
mean that it's quite a courageous thing to do, and particularly coming straight out of university and making that decision and kind of knowing the direction that you thought you were going to take. Because I think a lot of young people maybe struggle with jumping straight into the corporate world and then setting up a business, if that's what your heart really tells you want to do, becomes more and more difficult the longer that you're in a corporate role. So it's great to hear that story.
I suppose when you are 21, as we were then you're just filled with, I don't know, youthful energy and ignorance to a certain degree. How hard can it possibly be? And the idea of getting up every day and going to work for somebody else felt more difficult than just taking the momentum that we had and running with that for ourselves. But I'd certainly would probably take that, yes, over having instead gone into a more regular, normal job. And then the struggle then is, how do you break out of that in order to start something for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, if you do have that pull to do it, you kind of feel a bit trapped in the corporate hamster wheel, and the financial security that comes with that. So
this is the thing. When you start early and you're used to having no money, then it's not so much of a hassle to not live on much money. And you can, living part-time. And, I think back now to when we went to university in Luton and we chose to stay in Luton because we found a house to rent that was, brace yourselves, back then, £275 each a month.
Wow.
For us to live in a 2-bedroom terraced house in Luton, 5-minute walk from the station, 20 minutes, half an hour into London, £275 a month, which is insane to think about now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I guess, we had a student loan. We're kind of still living in the the back end of that with,
Back
insane overdrafts. And you just, in many ways, I've probably been living that student lifestyle ever since we left university and stayed hanging around. So, yeah, I've never been reliant on, a juicy corporate wage
Yeah.
to make myself overly comfortable.
Yeah. And
So the idea of working for oneself wasn't too much of a risk,
Awesome.
so to speak.
Yeah.
and that
I love
opportunity
that.
to fulfill your creative passion, because let's be honest, what you do is highly creative.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but there's certainly a rub when creativity meets business,
Mm,
and where we were three people who were naturally creative,
mm,
then of course you realize there's a whole different side to it where
mm,
you have
Mm-hmm.
to learn business skills.
mm,
And the challenge that, I personally faced individually was creativity versus the worst word, paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And in that in itself loops back to what we were just saying about the reliance on a regular wage.
mm,
When you do have to pay the bills at the end of the day, the sacrifice that I know I felt I made personally was the creative muscles that I had atrophied into going through the motions and not necessarily pushing myself creatively, because the work that I was doing, whilst it is creative, it's still
Mm-hmm.
a camera, an edit, filming, you still make creative decisions. It's not the same as having an original idea for something that is more creative,
okay.
especially
Mm-hmm.
when we started by making creative short films. It was creative filmmaking. And then for me personally, the need to pay the bills with the corporate work
Yeah.
kind of subdued and
See.
submerged the more native creative instincts that I had in the previous years.
And it's
Amazing.
interesting that you say that, because the next question was going to be, what have you learned from the things that haven't gone well? So
Yeah.
would it be fair to say that that was maybe an example of, that crossroads where creativity meets business?
There is that. It's a naivety to the fundamentals of what it means to run a business, especially when we went from a partnership, which was fairly easy to run on a legal level in terms of what's expected of you, in terms of filing your accounts and self-assessments. It was always very much right. Well, it's, the second week in January. Suppose we better break out the Excel spreadsheet that we've kind of been running for the previous 12 months of the year and see if we can't make any head nor tail of it. And,
Mm-hmm.
we'd get it done. We were never late. We never got fines, and we'd pay our income tax, and it was fine. But when we took the decision to form a limited company, we were naive to all the extra responsibilities that came with that.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, it was then a challenge to catch up on the administrative side of things, which then it is difficult. When you are behind on that, and it can cause issues that you're forever then trying to catch up on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then that certainly sharpens your intention to, well, now I definitely have to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Now we've definitely
I
got to
think.
focus on
Yeah.
the bread and butter work.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it didn't leave an awful lot of headspace to think of creative work outside of that we were doing for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is that eternal problem, isn't it, for small business
Yeah.
owners?
For all of us.
It's
Yeah.
balancing all of the things that need to be done with the doing of whatever it is that you do, whether that's delivering a product or a service. And actually, how do you balance absolutely everything in order to make things run smoothly? And
Smoothly. Yeah.
it's challenging. It really is.
It
And
is
and I
the
think we've
simple
spoken
is
about
the
it.
hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've spoken about it as well, isn't it? About maybe creating maybe Fridays or half a day to do your accounting rather than wait till 3 months and then start to catch up, because obviously every 3 months or every 4 months you have to submit your VAT. So, and I think starting from the beginning around, okay, I'm going to create this culture of making sure maybe once a week, half a day to do my paperwork. So that is what we all kind of we struggled with from the beginning, and I think you're not alone in that area. So
Yeah.
It's definitely having to learn structure, delegation, and responsibility.
yeah,
Even if you're delegating work to yourself, because it is only
yeah,
you, and it's delegating, like you just suggested, Rosalind, the days in
yeah,
which I'm going to do this. And if I don't do it, then it probably won't get done. But even if it doesn't get done, at least make sure you do it the next time it's due, and then it's going to do twice as much.
mm-hmm,
And even within
mm,
a broader context, delegation, responsibility. And then if you
mm,
are, getting in a rut with it, mix it up, change the day that you do it, or
yeah,
explore other software that you can use to maybe make it easier. And there's a lot to be said about investing in software, investing in external help, because ultimately, if it saves you time by paying money to help to get extra help or to be more efficient in your digital side of things, the money
yes,
you spend is worth it for the time and mental space that it frees up doing the things that you are less good at, or the things that you
yes,
enjoy the absolute least.
I think that
yes,
is a great
that's
point,
good. It.
actually, because I think particularly when we first start our businesses, we can be quite resistant to that because it is spending money. But you're so right, Mike. It's an investment. It
Mm-hmm.
frees up energy, headspace. It actually, I see it as a primarily, as you said so well there, an investment in my well-being is how I
Of
look
course.
at
Hmm.
these things, because
Mm-hmm.
actually if if it takes away some of that friction, it means that you can get on and do the things like you say that you're really good at.
And it's ironic because if you are in a service-based industry, if you can't get into your own mindset of I'm going to pay this external person to do this particular work for me because they're the expert, how can you then expect people to come to you and pay
Mm-hmm.
you as an external expert to do the things for them that they
It's true.
can't do it?
It's
I
vice
You've got to
versa.
look at
agree.
it from the
Yeah.
other side of the coin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Why, if I'm
Agree.
so hesitant at paying an accountant or a bookkeeper or an HR person or a coach to help me through my struggles, I'm just going to muddle through my own. Well, how can I then attract other people to come to me to make videos for them?
Yes. That is so true. And you can't be an expert in everything anyway. So, and you don't need to focus on your own business. So this is what I know how to do. So get other people to do your stuff for you, and the business will thrive. And in the situation that you just manage as well. So it's vice versa. You want people to promote your service, let me promote their service. I'll lead you way. Then you find support. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Because ultimately it comes down to the fear of, well, I've just earned this money.
Yeah.
Why would I then immediately spend it? Because you get into the hand to mouth situation. But again, it's
Yeah.
not seeing it as something, you don't think twice if you have to go and, when I don't drive, I don't have a car, but if your car runs out of petrol, you don't really have a choice, do you? You've got to do that. I'm not going to go to an oil field and, refine my own petroleum. So at the end of the day, if you're not naturally inclined to numbers, which I know I'm not, and accounting and financing and HR, or, again, overcoming personal challenges psychologically, I could
Mm-hmm.
spend hours and hours and hours struggling to do it myself, or bite the bullet, make the investment in yourself and your time, and help another small business, help another business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that 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 is a really really good point as well, isn't it? Particularly if you go out of your way to find somebody who is like you, a small business owner who knows the struggles, and actually you've immediately got a connection with them, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
it's like, okay, well, we're kind of supporting each other by doing this. So thank you for that.
And something as simple as finding an accountant, right, that you can get along with, the burden that relieves, and the the amount of endorphins it can be released just to have a conversation with someone who knows what they're talking about.
It's amazing.
It's almost indefinable. The amount of relief and pressure that relieves when you know you can trust someone that, again, you get along with, you have rapport with. You don't have to just take the first person that you see or
Of
stumble
course.
across. It's something we might take 2 or 3 attempts to find, the right accountant or the right supplier. But when you do, the difference it makes, it's beyond. It's
It
so far
is.
beyond the level of stress you were giving yourself trying to do it yourself otherwise.
And I agree with you. I agree with you, seriously. Even some of my clients as well, the relationship goes beyond client and yeah, customer service thing. We talked about everything, and from them, I've learned from them, and they've learned from me beyond the HR services that we provide. And using that an accountant as an example, seriously, I will actually agree with you. Seriously, I will agree with
And
you.
it's also
Yeah,
a form of subtle networking. Who knows
yeah,
what other clients your accountant might have,
Yeah,
right? Who
that's
knows
true.
that they might benefit from the
mm-hmm.
services that you provide?
Yeah,
And so it's a way of, expanding your circle as well as relieving yourself of an
yeah,
awful lot of stress and pressure.
yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
And I think it's all about that power team. I know Michelle, we have always talked about power team. So, like I said, I work well with business coaches and accountants as well. Like you said, I've had so many clients from my accountants as well. So, one of, you know, a retained clients and all of that. And I think, yes, just kind of find the best person to work with. Not just,
Mm.
okay, well, I just want to get their service and just, let go. Build that rapport. You never know. And that's how you find out your strength. Because at the same time, those people they are referring to you, they are their clients as well. And they want to get
Hmm.
the best service because that is their reputation if they refer them to somebody who they don't get along with. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Excellent point.
Yeah. So, oh, sorry, Michelle. You want to say
No, no,
something?
go on. No,
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, you've got so much experience, to be honest with you, knowledge and everything. I know you do things, other things beyond this filming thing. Because I've seen you on TV, this quiz thing. Anyway, if you want to talk about that, that is okay. But the next question I'm just going to ask you is if you could distill down all your knowledge and experience, what is your or one of the biggest business insight that you've ever learned since you started your business?
It's going to probably contradict from the other aspect you've just mentioned there. I would say, I mean, and I heard it today from yesterday. I heard it this week from an attendee in the workshop. It's waiting for things to be perfect because perfection doesn't
Ah,
exist.
okay.
And an excuse not to do anything, an excuse not to try, an excuse not to start, an excuse not to finish something. And I'm guilty of this myself. I'm speaking very much from personal experience. Perfection doesn't exist. It's just an excuse not to start. And it's far better to start something and get better as you go along. And yet, again, I want to be an expert in everything when I start. If I want to learn an instrument, I never have. Why? Because I want to be great from the moment that I first do it. I want that instant satisfaction, that instant validation. But it doesn't exist. Perfection is it's a reason not to start. And I suffer from that myself absolutely. And what that contradicts with is my other side of income, my other hat that I wear, apart from the filming and the training, is I'm a pub quiz master. This year will be the 10th anniversary of me taking over sole ownership of a local pub quiz down here in Woolwich. And from that one Thursday night, it's expanded into several other venues. Last year, I did 2.8 quizzes a week. That's hosting the quiz, compiling the questions, writing the questions, hosting the events. And I've said before, I think it's the best job in the world because I think it is the best job in the world. It gets me out of the house. Otherwise, I would probably be a complete hermit-like introvert. And it tickles the performative side of my brain. If you are a creative, I mean, I've always been behind the camera. Mostly, it comes to film production. Every director is a frustrated performer to a certain degree, so it certainly helps my ego in that respect. I get to challenge people which is nice. And I think that is the other side of the training coin, when you push people to, find out what they know and then see if they can go a little bit further and, learn something else. I get to play music at the same time during the quizzes, and that has also led to me having some opportunities as a DJ for local pubs as well, and party nights and New Year's Eve. And I also host karaoke as well. So it's somehow moved into me being able to share my love of music. Never as a performer, I can't even whistle. We've already established I don't have the attention span necessary to learn instruments, but it's definitely I think it's the best job in the world. And people go, do you get paid for it? Yeah, I do get paid for it. Do I get paid as much as I should? Well,
I was going to
maybe not.
ask that. I was going to ask that.
Well, I made the decision as soon as I took on my second venue, and I was there last night, the Rusty Bucket in Eltham, down here in southeast London, that every time I go and do a quiz in a new pub, the format has to be different for every pub.
Okay.
And then the questions therefore have to be different for every format. Because I've been fortunate that I do have a little collective of regulars, and some of them do come to not just every Thursday or not just every Monday, but sometimes there'll be monthly ones in a Tuesday in Eltham, then they'll be down in Bexley. And so I want people to be able to come on a Monday, come on a Tuesday, come on a Thursday, and not have an advantage ultimately, but have a different experience each time. The jokes I tell are always the same. That some material just has to be consistent anyway, but I want the experience to be different. If you're in a different pub, different day of the week, different day of the month, then it has to be different. So there is a relative amount of extra work that goes into doing that, but I feel like it is worthwhile. And having done it for 10 years now, I must be doing something right.
Yeah, amazing.
I wouldn't know where to start with something like that. So the fact that, and it's obviously something that's in demand. I know our local community centre, whenever there's a quiz night on there, people, they'll buy tickets because they love this sort of stuff, and to be able to be entertained and participate and do something that's fun and social, what a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up watching TV game shows. That was my, as well as sport on TV, it was always, there's a game show on, I would watch it. And I think I've, over the years absorbed quite a lot of general knowledge from that. And I use myself as the barometer in the questions. If I feel like I could reasonably know something as an answer, I don't feel it, it'll be too difficult to put it into the quiz. I say that challenges my mantra that perfection doesn't exist, because of course in a quiz you're looking for your accuracy, right? You can debate certain answers to a certain degree, but ironically having the ability to stand up a few times a week and demand accuracy, because correct answers are correct answers, I think that again it satisfies the side of me that seeks perfection by demanding it in other people, but also it's necessary. The questions I write have to be accurate. There has to be enough information in the question that gives people the opportunity to answer accurately, and so that in an ideal situation satisfies the need for perfection in my existence, that I then don't have to necessarily demand it from myself when it comes to my own work. And yes, I have been on television. It was pre-lockdown, so it was a while ago. It was on Dave, everyone's favorite digital TV channel, and it was a short-lived quiz. It only ran for one season, I think 12, 14 episodes, something like that. And it's called Beat the Internet with John Robbins. It's free to watch on. It was the UK TV Play app. Now they've rebranded to You. But I'll, the link's there. I can share the link with you.
Yes,
if you're keen to watch it. It's free to watch online. You can watch my episode. It's very low stakes, and it's all about internet searches and internet search engines. It was harmless enough fun. It was good fun to do. I should do more. People keep telling me, I should go on The Chase. or something
Okay,
similar.
yeah.
I think
And
you should do. Watching that episode, I was just flipping through. I said, oh, I know this. This is Mike. And the following day, I saw Mike. I said, I saw your TV last night.
it does seem to get heavily repeated. They're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
their money's worth out of that one season that they commissioned for it. Yeah,
Excellent. Well, we'll
but I
definitely.
should do more. Yeah, I should make my fortune by doing before I get to. I feel like when I learn something now, it pushes information out. When you're writing 30, 40, 50 questions a week, the danger is that old knowledge goes out to contain new stuff. So
Yeah,
before I
yeah,
start, fully leaking brain storage, I should try and make some money on the game shows.
yeah.
Go for it. Well, keep
Just
us
one
posted.
question for me. I know quickly. I just have during the COVID, this quiz was it something that you actually pushed during the COVID period? How did you manage?
Well, we were furloughed during COVID. We made the decision that I was, the business I was in previously, there were three of us, two of us were furloughed, while one of us stayed kind of at the forefront. And so I couldn't do any work ultimately for however long the furlough period went. It feels like years, obviously it was at least 1 year. But we were fortunate in that we had a lot of animation work come in because when you realize that going and filming stuff is your bread and butter when there's nothing to go out and film or you're not allowed out at all, then it very quickly makes you realize. We ran a DIY video workshop in January of 2020, and we were very much looking forward to doing more in-person workshops. Fortunately, we found a way to pivot those to be virtual, and we had clients say that came to us for animation work that didn't require any filming or editing work that was done with existing material. So yeah, it was like for everyone, it was strange and challenging, but ultimately it was the furlough scheme that kind of kept us going, so we could come out the other side of that still afloat when many of our competitors in the industry sadly weren't able to make it.
It's tough times.
Stop time.
But of
Stop
course,
time.
what that gave me, I think the thing that I appreciate most about the lockdown period was that from a personal point of view, it allowed me to explore more therapy. I've been, personally in therapy for 7 years. And the time it afforded me during lockdown, I could do more of that. And I took a particular 6-week course that was for an hour once a week for 6 weeks. And I found things in those sessions that I hadn't got to yet in my own talk therapy journey. Maybe I never would have done. And that, and what that opened up for me and how that allowed me to make changes personally have since been absolutely invaluable. So I think I'm one of the fortunate people that can say that COVID was an overall positive experience for me, as it allowed me to, explore things about myself personally that I don't know if I would have come to, or at least not in as quickly as I did through that.
Well, thank you for sharing that
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
because I think
Okay.
there's a really powerful message in that
Yeah.
actually, you know, we all have stuff. We all have stuff that we carry with us, be that from childhood, be it from things that have happened to us at some point in our lives. And sometimes we react to those things in a
We're
way
always
that,
reacting to them
yeah,
subconsciously.
exactly that. And that's because our brain is basically trying to keep us safe. But
Yep.
sometimes that stuff really doesn't serve us. And
No.
actually, and that's a human thing, it's a
Hmm.
human condition. It's just the way that we're built. And actually
Hmm.
recognizing that and taking the time to invest in unpacking some of that stuff is so valuable. And I really love the fact that you shared that because I think it's probably something that we should all do.
Oh dear. Yeah.
We would all benefit from therapy,
I
not
think
necessarily
so.
because we're all carrying, traumatic emotional baggage around with us, but how often are we encouraged just to take the time for, an hour a week or however long it is to talk about ourselves,
Yeah.
not in a self-promoting, boastful way, but actually no, it's okay to do that. It's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to talk about situations and relationships in a non-judgmental way, and just to express yourself, so you don't end up bottling things up, suppressing feelings, pushing emotions way down, 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 because all that breeds is resentment. It ferments like, brewing alcohol, and it bubbles up and it leaks into your behaviors in ways that you are therefore less aware of and less able to control. And again, it comes back to the idea of perfection and validation, which is, part of the issues that I always struggle with. If I'm looking to other people to, validate who I am and validate the choices I'm making, then again, just spilling it all out, I've always found it difficult to make decision paralysis, because I didn't realize that we've all heard of the fight or flight response to adrenaline and threat. I learned that there was a third option, freeze, where you end up not knowing whether you should fly or run or fight. And when I learned about the freeze response, it absolutely blew my mind. So, oh no, that's me. That's me. That is, I'm a freezer. And you then realize that all the times I've failed to make decisions, well, that in itself is a decision, because then decisions get made for you, but they're not being made actively on your own behalf. They're being made passively, and you allow someone else to make decisions for you. And whether you realize it or not, that's not necessarily what the other person wants to do. And then you end up doing what you think people want you to do. And all of that inactivity and all of that passive behavior, it breeds resentment in you against yourself and against the other person. And it does exactly the same thing. Because, well, how long do I have to make decisions for this person? Why can't they just, do it for themselves? And I've had that conflict professionally. I know I have it personally. And it's one thing to be aware of these things, but then, of course, it's another thing to actually do something about it and to be actively mindful of it as often as you can be, and to spot the signs and to, correct your behaviors and be aware of what's going on. And that is a never-ending journey, right? Self-improvement isn't a destination. It's definitely a journey. And in many ways, it requires reevaluation of relationships that you have in, personally and professionally. I made the decision pretty much a year ago to leave the business that I started 20 years previously. And it wasn't easy, but, I think it was self-evident, and we'll all admit, myself and my business partners, and, I've got nothing for love for both of them, but none of us were getting any easier to work with. And I think the relationships that we had gone as far as they could.
I think we've lost Mike there.
Hopefully his internet will kick back in.
Yeah. They went as far as they could, and the internet cut out.
Yeah.
So yeah, the relationship had gone as far as they could. And could we ever really move on from the past and 20 years of professional and personal living together under the same conditions that we were in? And I'd like to think that we've all benefited from that, because we're all able to then, reevaluate ourselves professionally as well as personally, because we're no longer in the same dynamic. What we can do is then liberated, and the responsibility that we have for 2, 3, one other person is taken away. And whilst I haven't necessarily done many things differently in terms of professional life in the year I've been working for myself and on my own, it's been a lot less stressful just looking after me and knowing that when I wake up, well, it's only is me that's going to pull myself out of these situations and and make progress one way or another. But I've never been married. I don't have children, which suggests to me that I'm not someone who thrives on responsibility towards other people. And I'm pretty much self-reliant in many ways, and I have to be okay with that. And in fact, well, I might as well lean into that rather than continue to try and push myself into a mold that doesn't fit, because clearly I don't necessarily like responsibility to a certain degree. I want to be relatively answering to myself or myself only. And you can take that as a positive, you can take it as a negative, and maybe that's something like I still need to work on, especially in terms of my personal relationships. But noticing that these things are not separate, everything is connected. The way in which you approach your personal life, the way in which you approach your personal life, it's all completely intertwined. And the time has to be taken if you feel like you're in a knot, or you feel like you're just a tangled mess of cables and threads, to stop and analyze and to inspect what's going on and find out where the different threads are and how are they woven together, and are they necessarily interwoven in a way that's beneficial to you, or are you just doing what you're doing out of habit, a habit which is perhaps self-destructive. And if you're going to continue to be self-destructive, it's worth knowing why you do that, how that then manifests in your behavior, so you can not necessarily stop it overnight, but over a longer period of time, correct that course and explore the first question you sent me over. Who is Mike? That's the last question I want to ask. Want to answer, because it's the question that came up in my therapy journey. It's, well, who are you? I was like, oh, I don't know.
What matters?
I've only
what is in here? What are those core values?
I've only ever measured myself in relationship to other people, right? I've only ever tried to be what I think other people want, always at every single point, not stopping or not allowing what I want to say, what I want to do, validating how I want to feel, to have any space or importance. And when you're not expressing your feelings, they don't go anywhere. And there's a reason they're called emotions, because they're meant to move through us. They're not meant to be permanent. They're not meant to hang around. You have a feeling based on chemical reactions in your body. You associate a memory with that emotional, physical reaction. You tell yourself a story, and then you behave in a way that makes sense, as you say, Michelle, to survive the situation, if you deem it to be, a problematic one. But that's not the way to live. It's, oh, I've got a feeling. Oh, I better just express it. And what's the worst that could happen? Well, someone reacts in a certain way. Well, guess what? I'm not responsible for other people's reactions. As long as I'm not deliberately trying to force something out of you and trying to be antagonistic or trying to upset somebody, if I'm just expressing how I'm feeling, then there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And what will happen is I express that feeling, and then it will go. The power it has over me is only as strong as how tightly I hold on to it.
I mean, there is so much in that thought, feeling, behaviour loop that once you kind of understand that actually, more often than not, the loop starts with the thought that creates the feeling, and then the outcome that you get is based on that whole sort of process, but you can interrupt it. But as you say, Mike, knowing these things and taking the time to really appreciate what's going on, how it impacts your body as well as your mind, and the outputs that come from it is really, I think that it's an investment in you.
More so than outsourcing your accountants or outsourcing your professional services you don't want to do. There's a lot to be said about outsourcing things in your personal life. You might pay a personal trainer, right, to help you out with your physical exercise. You might pay a tutor to learn a skill. Yes, no one necessarily wants to pay somebody to sit down and crack your brain open and stir the soup that's inside of it to find out what all the ingredients are. But I can't speak highly enough of it personally. And I think certainly if you're looking at it from, the current endemic we have of, the male loneliness culture and everything, and toxic masculinity, and, the highlighting of violence towards women and girls in the world, stemming from men who are ultimately damaged, and damaged people damage people. Hurt people cause hurt. And we have a culture that is certainly dismissive of any kind of therapy for anybody. Well, we have a culture that dismisses women's health in general, and we have a culture that doesn't promote talking about your feelings, especially if you are a man. And those two things clash, and it just causes untold friction and problematics in problems in society, all because we're not taking the time to find out what's wrong with us in the best possible sense.
Yeah, and not being afraid of that, because
Afraid to
actually, we're all human beings, and actually, if this is kind of the way we're made, there's nothing to be afraid of in terms of understanding, all of this stuff and how it impacts us.
Yeah, you might not like what you find, but well, that's what's causing the problem, though.
And you can
And it
change it
helps
once
to
you
change
know
it.
once you know what's going on. You can choose a different
Root.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whether that means your relationship changes with, I know that my relationship with my parents haven't been the same since, but I think they've been better since I've talked to them about, my upbringing and where I came from. I know the reasons why my past romantic relationships haven't worked out because of all the same issues that, are carried over from that. I know why my professional relationship struggled. It all comes back to the same root causes. These things are not separate. We are complex people, and it's okay to embrace that complexity, because then that's what makes life worth living, if you can understand more of what's going on.
This has been an incredible conversation, actually, and I think it's given us so much in terms of awareness, so much in terms of talking about issues that, as you say, mate, we don't talk about, and it's for all of us to kind of say these things and to raise the awareness. And I think it's really fascinating, the fact that sometimes I'll have a conversation with somebody like we are having today, and yesterday I had a conversation with a guy who is also a champion for men's mental health. And I also think of people like Jessie in the Greenwich community, who is doing incredible work for highlighting these issues. And I just think it's so interesting that suddenly I can have these conversations like in 1 week. It's almost like this is the time to get the message out there that, let's talk about these things, and let's support each other.
Well, this is it. They're a great initiative.
It links, isn't it? It links everywhere you go. If it's not addressed, Yeah.
What Jesse's doing, there's barbershop. This is Thursday night jollof. There's like the proper blokes club, which I've seen online and be more prominent, which is encouraging men to get together once a week and just hang out, walking and talking about how they're feeling. And it's a frightening thing to admit how you're feeling in any situation. But if you don't do that, then what satisfaction can you possibly hope to get out of life? Instead, you then start to do you maybe will start to indulge in unhealthy food or unhealthy behaviors, and then you indulge your own satisfaction in negative behavior rather than just in when it's appropriate, just say how you're feeling about something. It's huge, and it's a difficult habit to get into if you have had a lifelong of suppressing all of that and being comfortable with being the wrong kind of discomfort. I very much used to normalize that horrible stomach feeling of tension, like, oh, that's just normal. No, it isn't. Now, if you woke up every day with a splitting headache, you'd know that wasn't normal. But if you've got anxiety literally turning your body inside out every day because of the situations you're in and your relationships you're dealing with, that's not okay. It's worth doing the work that finds out why that is and then making changes. But people are afraid of change. And it all comes back to that fear, the fear of failure, the fear of not doing it, the fear of doing something wrong. And that fear stops us from accessing joy and new exciting things, and ultimately love. We're in a constant battle between love and hate, spiritually, emotionally. The whole world is currently dealing with that, and it's a shame that we don't choose love for ourselves, for other people, the creation as it exists in the world around us. We don't do that enough.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Mike, I
Amazing.
applaud you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
for
that.
sharing that. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I think going back to the business anyway, thank you so much. You've shared a lot. We've gone above and beyond what we planned for today. But if you
Clarity
could
and
give
beyond.
us, Mike, if you could give us one insider tip to apply in our own businesses based on what you do, what will it be?
Well, what I found from what I do recently, and again, the workshop that Michelle was at on Monday, it's that you've got to keep doing something. Just because you do something the first time and it's not how great you thought it was going to be, you've got to do it again, and you've got to do it again and do it again. And if it wasn't as you wanted it to be the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth times, take what you've learned and what to do differently into the next one. Right? If you want to start the journey in making videos for your business, do the first one. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be a little bit pants. Right? You're
It's,
probably going to
yeah.
be nervous. The lighting might not be great. The sound might be a bit weird. You might not like how you brushed your hair that day. I know I struggled with that, but you've got to do it again. And don't be afraid to analyze what you've done and ask other people, right? Get people's opinions, but, surround yourself with people who are going to be honest with you and go, look, the sound isn't great. The lighting's not great. Why did you do it in that room? You're such a different person when you are in the room. How can you translate that then if you're going to be on camera? And then learn that, listen to it, take it on board. Don't take it personally. It's an objective technical issue, and move on and do it differently next time. And eventually you'll start doing it and it won't be so much of a problem. And if you can develop a system, a format, a mechanism, have a little room, like you both clearly have in your space to sit down and do these things properly, it takes it takes all the effort out of it. And then you just start worrying about, right, well, what am I going to talk about today? And then the hardest part should be, oh, goodness me, if you're planning these things properly, it shouldn't be difficult at all. The hardest part is I've got so many ideas. How do I make sense of all of them? And
Oh,
even
thank you.
then, right, if you've got a message you want to deliver, break it down into its smallest parts. No piece of insight is too small that it can't exist on its own. One idea, one thought, one question. So if you are the kind of person that has multiple, plates spinning at once, allow yourself, when it comes to your communications with the outside world, just one plate at a time.
I love
like
that.
that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you.
That is
Thank you.
incredible.
Yeah, and I think
While
you've
you're writing
covered
this
the
down,
last.
you're gonna watch this back later when you're editing it, surely.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, and I think you've covered the other one that I was going to ask about share. What else can you share about being a business owner? You've covered a lot from the last question I asked. Thank you so much. Are you able to tell us where people can find you? Obviously, you're going to send us some messages that we kind of put in the link in the video before we publish it. Where can people find out more about you and your work, what you do, Mike?
The best place currently is LinkedIn. Mike Jelves on
Okay.
LinkedIn, or linkedin.com/London videographer. I don't know if you know that you can personalize your LinkedIn URL to be whatever you want, as long as no one else has it. That's
No,
a
I
fun
don't
tip there if you
know.
don't already know that. My business doesn't yet necessarily exist. I'm just a sole trader at the moment. So I'm making all the mistakes I tell people not to do. I don't currently have a website. I've got multiple Instagram accounts for my photography tuition. I've got another account for my quiz night, another personal account. So there's no like one social media place. LinkedIn is the best place. It's Mike Jelves.
Okay.
There aren't that many of me. I'm not that difficult to find on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. For viewers, we're going to drop information about where you can find Mike and his work as well. Thank you so much, Mike. Like I said, you've given us above and beyond, well above and beyond. Thank you so much. We've learned from you today. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for the opportunity to join you, and thank you for demonstrating the power in putting yourselves out there, in starting something creative, stepping outside of your comfort zone, and making this project and keep up the great work with it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
So
You're very welcome
for everything.
Yeah.
Anytime.
So for our viewers, until next time, see you soon.
See you soon.
Well done, everyone.
No, well done you. Thank you.
I had to stretch, my legs have gone all crampy.
So much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you.